So, been watching just some YouTube videos, kind of see where everyone else is at with Honkai Star Rail, and I kind of stumbled on this video. I don't think I've really watched this guy before, um, but I've already watched the video once, and a lot of the things he said was just wrong. So it was really confusing as I was watching. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm gonna go through this and just kind of pick some things apart because it's kind of weird just how ill-informed this person is.
We have three types we can discuss with Nihility, and first up, I'm absolutely going to be biased and discuss my favorite of the types, DOT, or Damage Over Time character.
So his favorite is damage over time. We're gonna see how well his knowledge is on damage over time. Uh, by the way, my favorite's damage over time too. Let's see how this goes.
Now, if you're a newer player, you may not be too familiar with DOT. This is because a true DOT character hasn't been released since version 2.0. I miss my damage over time characters, man. These types of Nihility characters have essentially...
Because I did a video discussing why Jiao Cao, or Jiao Cho, Jiao Q is not really a dot unit. It doesn't cooperate with the dot playstyle, despite having a dot in his kit. So, having a dot alone does not make you compatible with dot. Or the dot playstyle specifically. So, he's right there, so he's 1 for 1 so far.
He disappeared from Star Rail altogether. At the time of writing, we're still waiting for the Kafka buffs, which I hope will be extremely impactful, but that doesn't quite make up for the overall weakness of all the other characters in the DOT role at this point. Characters like Sampo, Black Swan, and Luca are all older characters whose power level simply isn't at the necessary level to even keep up with someone like Aglaya. Aglaya is who many consider one of the weakest new DPS characters to be released.
Is she? Maybe she is. I don't know. I have not pulled any of the Amphorius characters. I pulled the Herda and Boot Hill in 3.0, and I said, you know what? I don't like Amphorius characters. They're all terrible people, so I just haven't pulled any of them. So I'm not sure the exact power level as far as who's where. I was kind of under the impression that Aglaya was stronger than, like, say, Maide. I mean, realistically, the only DPSs so far in Amphorius have been... what? Aglaya, Maide, Gasteries? I think that's pretty much it. Isn't it? So... Not many to wager against, but sure, I guess she's the weakest.
Which, by the way, I don't really agree with that, but hey, what are you gonna do? DOT has not had any proper support since Black Swan was introduced into the game over a year ago, sadly.
Well, not a proper support as in specifically tailored to DOT, but I mean, Robin functions pretty well. Trivy technically works if you want to go that route. Aventurine can work in the dot comps as a sustain. He came out after Black Swan. Has DOT been treated well since 2.0? Obviously not. Though we did just get the Capca buffs. But, it's not entirely true, is it?
Brief history might have been a bit excessive, but since DOT has been absent for so long, I really did feel it necessary for newer players watching. With that established, we can now talk about the earliest Queens of Nihility before the path had begun to change. The characters who really represented the path for most players, Kafka, and later on, Black Swan. Kafka is an extremely unique character, so we're going to cover Black Swan first. She matches the style of many of the other early Nihility characters, while also just being way better than them. So, Black Swan is a wind character who focuses on applying her signature debuff, Arcana. The interesting part about Arcana is that while it is a debuff and does inflict damage over time, it also is capable of massively raising its own damage floor. It should be on screen right now, but Arcana can not only increase the DOT damage multiplier for Black Swan, not only will it have a chance to stack when enemies take any form of DOT damage, but you can receive different effects based on how many Arcana stacks you have. If you have 3 or more stacks, you'll deal damage to adjacent targets as well as the primary target being hurt initially. Then, if you have 7 or more stacks, the current DOT damage dealt will ignore 20% of the primary target and adjacent target's defense. Honestly, a really nice mechanic that is a fun way to not have to rely on Kafka, and allows for some good multi-target offense instead of just using blast attack.
So to get it to spread on multiple characters, you do want to use her skill, which is a blast attack. And then the ruptures that do happen on enemies' turns are also blast attacks, technically. It is very good for AoE, but yeah, no, you're definitely relying on blast attacks. And he also stuck in a weird little comment there saying, like, not relying on Kafka. The problem for Black Swan is she's very dependent on Kafka to actually drive her stacks to a high enough value. I mean, Sampo can sort of work, but especially with the Kafka rework, no, that one ain't right. Even before, that one ain't right. You definitely want as many detonates as possible to actually get the stacks to a higher count of Arcana to actually get the damage to really settle in.
The fun with Arcana doesn't end here though. Every single attack Black Swan does is capable of inflicting these Arcana stacks.
Every attack?
From basic attack to ultimate.
No. Just, actually, no. That's... So, in her base kit, before you apply like any traces, only her basic attack can actually raise Arcana. It does have a chance to go up when any other dots go off of, but as far as like actual attacks, only her basic has it by default. One of her major traces allows her skill to increase the Arcana stacks. And her ultimate is completely and utterly incapable of doing it. The only time you would see it happen would be in, say, an Apocalyptic Shadow or Divergent Universe, and you have some way of detonating dots from attacks that you do, which there's a couple effects that do that. But the ultimate is incapable of raising stacks. In fact, when you fire off Black Swan's ultimate, it will not raise the Arcana at all. That's probably something, like, if she ever does get around a boss, that's probably something they would do to her. But yeah, that's definitely something that doesn't happen currently.
This is built into all of her attacks though, unlike a character like Sampo, whose DOT stacks are tied to his talent.
Yes, his DOT stacks are tied to his talent, but it's on any attack. So even his ultimate, his basic attack, and skill. So what you said about Black Swan before is actually true for Sampo, and you're implying that it doesn't affect for Sampo because it's only on his talent. But his talent applies to any attack he does. His basic attack is actually 3 hits and can actually apply up to his talent 3 times. His ultimate is 4 hits on every enemy. That's 4 wind shears that it could potentially apply. Now, granted, his base chance is low enough that usually you don't stack enough effect hit rate to 100%. But you'll usually get most of the stacks. You'll usually at least get half, statistically speaking. And then his skill is 5 to 6 bounces, depending on if you have the Eidolons or not. But yeah, every single hit that Sampo is able to do will apply wind shear, because as a talent actually applies to every attack. So, you must not have played Sampo very much.
This is once again 4-star versus 5-star privilege, but it is genuinely a very big privilege, with Black Swan's talent
I mean, the privilege is in favor of Sampo, technically, since, I mean, he applies stacks his wind shear stack's much easier than technically Black Swan. Black Swan really needs someone else to detonate dots to get her stacks going. I mean, you can rely on enemies' turns, but every time an enemy has a turn, her stacks also reset, so it's a little awkward.
Allowing for a lot more than any other DOT. I made mention of it, but Black Swan has a 65% chance to apply another Arcana stack whenever enemies take DOT damage. So by already having a debuff on the character, you're far more likely to be rewarded with even more damage output. Somehow, that's still not the end though. Arcana is
No, I'll let him talk a little more.
clearly very powerful and pretty essential to Black Swan's kit, right?
Yes.
Well, what if there was a way to keep your Arcana stacks for longer to deal even more damage?
Alright, he's going to talk about the ultimate next. Before he talks about the ultimate, though, I do want to clear up some weird things with Black Swan. Let me switch the screens. Alright, so if you're not aware how like most characters work, when you max out your basic attack, you usually have a 100% multiplier. The characters that have like the blast type basics, theirs are a little different, like Jade. So it'll be 90% instead of 100 because she spreads out 30 to the side enemies. Trippy, I think, has the same modifier. HP characters have, like, instead of the 100%, they're 50% HP because your HP is usually double what your attack is. Black Swan's basic's only 60% damage. The reason why hers is only 60% basic attack damage is because of the whole stacking Arcana. The stacking Arcana is 12% multiplier per stack. So what makes her basic a little dumb is she'll apply one extra stack of Arcana, 65, and then one stack per wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock if either of those are present. So the maximum amount that she could potentially stack on a single basic attack is 5, which is another 60% to her dot multiplier. But you usually won't have all 4 except for like your ultimates active. Most of the time, you're at least currently you're running Kafka with just Black Swan, so you usually only have 2 dots on the enemy. So you're playing like 3 stacks. So you're only getting, 36% damage. So technically her basic's only 96. Now every detonate will of course trigger the extra 36% and then add more stacks, etc. But the point is that her basic attack is actually weaker than most characters to make up for the fact that she applies those stacks. So yes, it does allow you to ramp up damage, but it's not as strong as you think it is. Additionally, her skill has pretty pitiful damage. It's kind of an unusual... So it is a blast attack, and it is 90% to all 3 targets. I think the only other characters that have equal blast distribution like this is, I believe, the Destruction Trailblazer, and I think Arlen with some of his Eidolons for his ultimate allows it to actually deal full damage to both the primary and side targets. But 90% attack for a skill point is not especially strong, and she's only going to get roughly 2 stacks because she'll only gain... at the same time, the 100% base chance to inflict 1 stack on entire adjacent targets. So she inflicts 1 flat out on all 3 targets. And then her trace, one of these, allows the skill to have the same thing as the basic, where it checks if wind shear, bleed, burn, or shock are present. And then for each one of those 4, it'll have a chance to apply the additional stacks. So, best case scenario, she's only applying 3 stacks on her skill as well to 3 targets. That is a total of 9 stacks, so the damage is not great. This is why While Crit Kafka has had some times where she's kind of popped off and done some silly things, Black Swan Crit has never been a fucking thing because she just does not have the multipliers. I mean, 90% is pretty fucking low. That actually makes me curious. How does this compare? Come on. I don't even think I have the traces max on this. I probably don't. But yeah, I mean, this is level 10, so yeah, this was like comparable. You could get 12, so it could go higher. 6%, so it should go up 10%, so 12.5, so 137.5, I believe, is the final multiplier if you actually have level 12. So yeah, we're talking about damage that is beaten by destruction physical MC. Yeah, I don't think anyone cares about physical destruction MC's damage. So yeah, that's not a good thing. So Black Swan is very, very fucking dependent on having someone raise the stacks because her multipliers just aren't there. The 12% per stack is also not especially impressive as far as ramp. Like, it was at her release, but it's certainly not now. It requires a lot of effort to get it to high enough stacks for the multiplier to actually, like, really pop off. Because you want to get to, like, in excess of 400. Now, technically, if you get all the way to the 50 stacks, yeah, you got a 700% multiplier dot, and that's, of course, going to be fairly strong. But up until she can get to that many stacks, and if you can keep those stacks long enough to actually get it to be detonated or reapply the ultimate, if you're fast enough to reapply it again, because her ultimate only lasts for 2 turns. Which, he's probably going to talk about that, but it's not very long, so you don't have a lot of time to capitalize on those stacks. And then it takes her a while to get her ultimate again, because she's got 120 energy on that old cost. So, and you usually don't run energy regen on her. But, anyways, let's go back to this video.
Let me introduce you to Black Swan's ultimate, Bliss of Otherworld's Embrace.
Beneath the silent waters lies an endless abyss!
Essentially, this will inflict Epiphany on enemies, which increases damage taken during their turn by 25%. Your Arcana stacks are now counted as every form of DOT damage at once, meaning all of those have their own chance to apply yet another Arcana stack. The cherry on
This is true, but like, it's still not raising the stacks all that much, because the Arcana itself will count as all 4, so, you know, it could potentially give 4 stacks. That's only 4 stacks, that's only a 48% multiplier. And again, you only have 2 turns to get it going, so depending on how many detonates you can get off, it's going to be 4, like, I mean, if you don't have Kafka, you're only going to get 8 stacks, realistically. At least, well, Sampo, like, you could detonate wind shears and stuff. Luca, you can detonate it as a bleed. But realistically, you're not going to get a lot of stacks without Kafka. Worst case scenario, you're only getting a total of 8 stacks. 4 on the first turn, 4 on the second turn. And the way the damage is calculated, you're going to get the 4 on the first, and then 4 on the second, and then another 4 on the second, because the stack stayed. So you effectively get 12 stacks worth of damage, which, you know, it's 144% multiplier. Her her ultimate only, like, I think her ultimate actually has fairly low damage too. Yeah, 120%. I think that's only a little bit stronger than, like, Pela's ultimate. Pela can spam hers. Yeah, because Pela's got, what, 100, and then it goes to 108. Yeah, and Pela's also applies a, a nice debuff. Well, I mean, Epiphany's a nice debuff too, but yeah, like, this isn't like an Acheron ult, or it's not like fucking wiping out tons of fucking enemies. Like, it's very good for piling on damage when you need to, but it's not like a big shift. Like, I mean, Black Swan's really still dependent on just who else can actually ramp up stacks for her. So yeah.
On top of all of this is that you will still get to retain your current Arcana stacks after their next use, meaning even more time to reach that max stack limit of 50 and get even more big damage.
Like, 50 stacks is just not reachable. Like, outside of Simulated Universe or Divergent Universe, whichever one you want to do, like, you're not getting to 50 stacks, like, reasonably. Like, it's just not happening. There's not enough detonates. There's not enough time. You really can't set up Black Swan in a way that realistically can keep applying Epiphany to keep the stacks high. There are some builds that technically do it, but, like, it's not optimal. Like, if you end up crippling the damage output that Black Swan can do, and you're also not benefiting the rest of the team functioning properly to do it. So it's not really a optimal strategy.
This ultimate does also do damage to enemies, but I'm gonna be honest, no one cares about that, let's be honest here.
Okay, he's right about that.
After everything I just told you, and how interesting of a design this is, her skill also reduces defense by 20%. Black Swan is easily one of the most impressive characters to ever be created for a specific path. Her kit is built entirely around the core mechanics of the path, and you are rewarded an unbelievable amount by committing to that team and their playstyle. While Black Swan's kit really fails to survive today since she's so heavily built for DOT, she is still easily one of my favorite designs in the entire game, and she did wonders for a team type that was really dying out before her. She was built as an
So it's one of his favorite kits, but he was really not that well informed on the kit. Like, not knowing that the ultimate didn't apply Arcana stacks at all. Yeah, there's just some oddities.
Ultimate
it gets
partner
weirder,
character,
so...
and she succeeds in that role while also rising above it. She could only rise so far early on though, because waiting at the summit to greet her was Kafka, a DOT character unlike any other. Kafka is a Lightning 5-star, who was released in version 1.2 of Honkai Star Rail. When I tell you there is no other character like her in this game, I really do mean it. Kafka for a long time was the true engine of DOT, and the only way to make it truly function. I've seen people argue against this nowadays, but that doesn't change the fact that Kafka is one of the best characters you could get for this archetype.
Yes, Kafka... I very much played comps without Kafka, and I have made them work. Obviously, Kafka is optimal. There are some situations where you don't need Kafka as much, and there's also like that one weird time where I ran dot on two sides, so I had to split my dot units. So Kafka and Black Swan actually ended up in different teams. But I mean, that's not normal. That's not what people would normally do. So yes, you would usually have Kafka, and yes, you would have Black Swan if you're a dot player at this point. However, I mean, there are ways to make dot still function as far as actually playing the style of dot. Doesn't necessarily mean you're getting optimal damage. Obviously, Kafka is going to be the highest tier on that, and if he wants to argue from that standpoint, that's fine. But as far as actually just playing the style to how Dot actually plays, she's not the only option.
It's all linked to one simple reason as well: her skill. Caressing Moonlight, which is an incredible name, is a blast attack that not only does 160% of Kafka's attack to the primary target, but if the target is currently receiving DOT, all DOTs currently placed on that enemy will immediately produce damage equal to 75% of their original damage. This often results in a massive amount of damage, considering not only Kafka is capable of applying a DOT, but her best teammates can all apply one or even multiple a turn. When I tell you this is the
one or multiple a turn. Arcana is technically just one dot. It does have a stacking mechanic, but it's technically one dot. Same with Wind Shear from Sampo, it's technically one dot. The only way you can really apply multiple dots is if you put Kafka's Light Cone on other characters, or on Kafka herself, because it applies a separate lightning dot. Or breaking an enemy with one of the 4 dot elements. We don't have any characters that inflict multiple dots at this point, so that's a odd statement.
only thing we need to talk about with Kafka. I'm serious. This skill is the entire reason for her existence, and it is as important to Kafka as Acheron's ult is to Acheron. No other character in the game has the ability to detonate multiple DOTs, or hell, even a DOT that isn't their own.
What? Hold on. We need to hear that one again.
The ability to detonate multiple DOTs, or hell, even a DOT that isn't their own.
C-Pagan. No, that's completely wrong. In fact, every single detonate in the game is able to detonate dots that aren't from the character, as long as it's the appropriate dot. Luca's detonate for bleeds applies to any and all bleeds, regardless of who's caused it, whether it's your Natasha, whether it's your Boot Hill who did break bleeds. It doesn't matter, or if there's a bleed from Divergent Universe that's not even caused by one of the players, Luca can still detonate it. Zampo can detonate any and all wind shears, including the Arcana, even when Epiphany's not on. When Epiphany is on, and when Arcana is counted as bleed, burn, shock, and wind shear, anyone can detonate it. That means Winifen's ultimate, Sampo's skill at E4, and Luca's talent also allows his enhanced basic to detonate bleeds, and it will detonate Arcana. Gwynifen's ultimate will also detonate Arcana if the Epiphany is on. So, what the fuck are you talking about?
As a result of this, Kafka stands alone as one of the most unique characters in all of Star Rail history. To this day, I'll never understand why no other character was given this in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, if they just wanted to market Kafka, that would be fair, but almost any other character with a unique mechanic has had it redone somewhere else. Not to mention, DOT has been dead for a while, so it could have made sense to reinvent and make it stronger with someone new. This is such an interesting thing to have slipped through the cracks, but regardless, Kafka is the only one who has this ability. Also, before anyone gets on me, technically Gwynifin can detonate her own, but again, that's
Her own. So, he put emphasis on her own. So he honestly believes that Gwynifen's ultimate only detonates burns that she herself causes, which is factually wrong. You can detonate Arcana during Epiphany. Any burns from anyone's causing Firebreak, if you have Asta or Himiko in the party inflicting burns, obviously not an ideal team setup. I'm just stating the fact that if they apply a burn, or you have tried to the Universal Market on Event Trade and applying a burn, Gwynifin can detonate it.
only her own. It's very different. Kafka
It's The thing is that they're just restricted to their one element. The part that makes Kafka specifically unique is that she can detonate any dot regardless of which type of dot it is. If it's bleed, burn, shock, or wind shear, Kafka is able to detonate all four. That's what specifically makes her unique compared to the others. That's what makes her stand above the 4-star units. All the 4-star units actually have a detonator in their kit. Also, just the accessibility. Kafka's detonate is right there in her base kit, accessible immediately from her skill. And then, of course, her ultimate, which now with the update to her ultimate, yeah. Brutal damage. Sorry, let me change the screens. So yeah, like her ultimate now does lightning damage, has base chance to apply shock. Immediately take damage from their current dot debuffs equal to 120%. So when this was on the major trace, I think it even specified specifically that it affects bleed, wind shear, burns, and shocks, whereas before, like, her ultimate was just shocks until you got the major trace. But now it just says dot debuffs. So theoretically, if we got a dot debuff that wasn't burn, wind shear, shock, Kafka would be able to theoretically detonate that dot as well. Even from her skill. Yeah. Adjacent targets are currently afflicted with dots. All dots currently possessed on those enemies will immediately produce their damage of 75 or 50% of the original damage. Now, he did this video before the buff went through. He did comment on that, so I'm not going to judge him based on information that's like post Kafka buffs. But all the information, like he said about Wynife, Luca, Sampo, like it's just wrong. When skill hits an enemy with 5 or more stacks of wind shear, does not matter what kind of wind shear, and this includes Arcana. So if you have 4 stacks of Arcana and 1 stack of wind shear, it counts as 5 stacks of wind shear existing on the enemy. Actually, I'm not 100% sure on that one, actually. You might actually have to have the 4 stacks and then Arcana being the 5th. But I think it works the way I first stated. I actually haven't specifically tested it out. But anyways, the immediate will take 8% of the current wind shear damage, and Arcana does count as a wind shear. This is able to detonate wind shears. In the case of Luca, we got his talent. This basically just mentions the mechanic of his enhanced basic, but when he does his enhanced basic, the final hit, which is the rising uppercut, hits a bleeding enemy target. The bleeding status will immediately deal damage for 1 time equal to 88% of the original damage of the target. At the start of the battle, Luca will possess 1 sacrifice. So at base, before you even have any Eidolons, any bleeds on the enemy will immediately deal 88% damage of their original damage. This includes break bleeds, which is why Luca's actually more of a breaker than a dot unit, oddly enough. But his Eidolon, specifically his E6, allows him to get extra 8% detonates, and these are separate, so like they will trigger separately, so you can actually have multiple triggers that go off. And the way this one works is you get 3 direct punches that have a 50% chance of doing additional punches, and then each of those will produce an 8% damage. To work out the probability math, it's effectively on average 4.5 hits will be done before the uppercut, so you get roughly an extra 44% detonation on top of the 88% from his talent. It's just complete RNG on that part, but it averages to 4.5 times. So, and that affects any bleed. Doesn't matter who causes it. You can even double bleed enemies. There is double bleed setups with Fugue, where you can actually cause 2 separate bleeds on an enemy and then have Luca detonate both of them. And the separate bleed has to come from a different character. Luca, or any individual character, cannot inflict more than 1 break status of their element type. So like if Luca, being physical, breaks an enemy, they get inflicted with bleed. If he breaks them again, they get inflicted with bleed, and it just refreshes the same bleed. However, if somebody else, say like you got Boot Hill and Luca together, have Luca break a bleed and then, or break it and cause a bleed, and then Boot Hill breaks the other bar, let's say with Few, odd comp, but you could do it. You could actually have 2 separate high break value bleeds and then have Luca detonate both of them. It is something you can do. And Gwenifin, again, hers is actually in her base kit. It is just on her ultimate, just immediately causes target damage is currently inflicted with burn. Their burn status immediately produces damage equal to 96%. Nothing in the statement says that it's specifically her own burns only. So I don't know why he thinks that it's restricted to just her own damage, and why he thinks only Gwenifin is able to do it. Earlier in the video, like when he was mentioning dot units, he specifically named Sampo and Luca, but didn't mention Gwenifin. Now he's mentioning Gwenifin, so I don't know if he's just like intentionally leaving some characters out at some point just for brevity's sake, just to make the video not as long. But like, there's just some weird inconsistencies. It's like he's talking from second-hand knowledge, not first-hand knowledge on how dot works. And that's the part that weirds me out. Like, it's just, it's close. It's as if somebody's been told information about dot, but doesn't actually understand it themselves. I think that's the part that confuses me.
Luca and Black Swan were a powerful duo that greatly enhanced each other to a level DOT had never seen before. It was nice for a while, but something was brewing. A change in the path we had come to know. However, it wouldn't be a permanent change, and more importantly, it was something that no one would have seen coming.
Alright, so he finished with Dot, and I kind of covered a lot of the little weird mistakes he made, like not understanding how the detonates work, not fully understanding how the Arcana stacks work, or why Black Swan's actually not as strong as people try to make her out to be. So there was a lot of weird stuff with the video.
The second type of Nihility
And
character
now he's
on our
going to talk
list
about
today isn't a
Acheron.
set like DOT was. In a
And
spec,
I'm going to
not in an easy way,
skip ahead
but
here
long
a
story
little
short,
bit.
they don't deal any form of DOT damage and only do something when Acheron ults. Not having access to any debuffs is already unheard of for the Nihility path.
So he states that Acheron does not have any debuffs in her kit. And if you're reading her kit, it's going to seem like she doesn't have any. In fact, even I initially thought that she didn't actually have any debuffs in her kit. It is there. I do have an Acheron. I do not use her. Let me pull the video up again. Or the game. I do have an Acheron. She's level 44. I don't use her. She was a mistake pull. Like I was trying to pull on a Robin banner, and I accidentally pulled on the Acheron banner in one instance and actually pulled Acheron. So like it happened. I can't undo it. Anyways, if you actually look at her kit though, in her talent specifically, while she's in the ultimate. During the ultimate, reduce enemies' toughness rolls, weakness type, and reduce their all-type res by 13%. This is actually a debuff. Now, it's a weird fucking debuff, though. Because normally she gains stacks when somebody inflicts a debuff. She, as far as I'm aware, she actually does not get a stack for this debuff being applied. The debuff is only active during her ultimate. No one else is able to go during her ultimate, so she's the only person who can actually take advantage of this debuff. And it's just to make her ultimate do more damage, which they could have just made her ultimate ignore 13% all type res and just completely remove this part. It's the same damn effect. So technically, in a way, she doesn't inflict debuffs, but she does. But it doesn't count. Like, she's really stupid. I get it. Acheron's a dumb fucking character. She's poorly designed. She's always been a dumb character. If you like Acheron, I'm sorry you have to hear me say this. It's just true. She's just not a very intelligently designed character. I understand what they were trying to do. I just don't think they were successful for many reasons, and I don't want to fully get into that right now. But yes, Acheron is actually able to inflict a debuff. Also, her access to Nihility cones, several of the Nihility cones also have debuffs, so she has a way to inflict it there. That's not specific to her kit, but it is specific to the fact that she is a Nihility character. She's able to equip those light cones. Obviously, not the appropriate way to play her. I don't think you should be putting pearls of sweat on fucking Acheron, but
it doesn't end there
it
either.
is. It does
Acheron
exist.
relies entirely on crit stats to succeed, something that was unheard of for the Nihility path up to this point.
Crit Kafka existed, so it's not entirely unheard of. There's also Crit Silverwolf, I think, for a while, though. I think Break Silverwolf was generally more popular early on. But yeah, Crit with Nihility, Weld also exists as well, who also builds Crit. Acheron was not the first Nihility unit to use Crit. She's also obviously the most successful one to use Crit, but she was not the first. It was not unheard of.
Every single Nihility character, before Acheron, focused on three things. Speed, up to a certain breakpoint, enough effect hit rate to make sure your debuffs go off, so usually somewhere in the 60 range, and as much attack as humanly possible.
The attack as much as possible is only really for dot units, like welts, silver, like they didn't worry too much, like you'd want some attacks, like if you're actually building them for DPS, you'd probably have like attack boots or something on them, or maybe you do run speed boots still. Maybe you'll run an attack rope then instead. But you're still using, you would be focusing on crit instead. You wouldn't be slamming attack on weld once you have enough effect hit rate and speed on him. Like it sounds like he's more talking about dot. Like he doesn't get the bigger picture of like the other Nihility units.
To switch away from these core parts of the identity of Nihility was an insane change, and to this day, many people see Acheron more as Acheron, rather than a Nihility character.
That's true. I made a statement along those lines just a minute ago. But yeah, Acheron is her own thing. But she is still a Nihility unit and abides by the other rules that Nihility generally follows.
She really is that different from how normal Nihility.
I think the only thing that's specifically unique to her compared to other Nihility units is that she does not require effect hit rate like every other Nihility unit. Before I completely screw myself on saying something dumb, let me double check and see. Databank. Effect hit. Oh. So effect hit rate, effect hit rate, effect hit rate, effect hit rate, effect hit rate. Yeah, everybody needs effect hit rate except for Acheron. Everyone else needs it in some quantity. If they want their debuff to be laying reliably, you of course can just not build any effect hit rate and just have a random chance of your shit working, but yeah, she's the only one that actually is not required to build effect hit rate. That's the only thing that's actually unique about her. Crit is not unique to her because, again, like I stated, many other Nihility units also use crit. So,
Works, but interestingly enough, she's still linked heavily to the path with her kit. Also, her story, since she is literally cursed by the Nihility, but hey, I'm just here to talk about game mechanics, man. Acheron has a trace called the Abyss, requiring 2 Nihility characters to reach her full potential. With this trace active, Acheron's damage across the board increases Acheron
Yeah,
wants.
she gets more damage.
Debuffs. Required for Acheron to function as a character.
Let's
Acheron
skip
is
ahead a
reliant
little
on
bit
her
because I
ulties
don't really
based on
care that
Ia's
much about the
At the time
Acheron
of her
part.
release, no other character in Star Rail had this sort of ultimate, and only one other character was as reliant on their ultimate to do damage. All in all, Acheron is not only one of the most unique characters in the history of Star Rail, but somehow one of the best aging to this day. While DOT has mostly fallen off a cliff at the time of writing, Acheron still holds strong as one of Star Rail's best all-around characters if you really invest in her. She has the ability to destroy most.
I've seen Zaylays that are like heavily invested that are still beating stuff, so I don't think that's entirely unique to Acheron. And I don't think she's aged the best. Because her ultimate frequency hasn't really picked up meaningfully. And she doesn't exactly get the kind of scaling with other units. I mean, she's a little better now with the updated Silverworth. Again, I'm not going to critique him based on buffs that happened after his video came out. So, but Acheron has not really gotten anything that's kept her relevant or allowed her to age more gracefully as time gone on. And if anything, she's actually aged very poorly because her numbers have just kind of stayed static. And other than I always fuck up saying his name, Zhao Q. Other than him, like, and yes, he is a upgrade. Yes, he's technically a best in slot for her. But he's not like this huge push that like makes her like way stronger. It's not like Aglaya getting a Sunday or Castries getting like a Hyacinth. Like it's not the same. So
multiple targets at once, her damage can still hold up against single target fights with her Crimson Knot multipliers.
I don't know
and when
about
hyper
that.
invested,
Definitely
she
not
has the
that good in
flexibility to
single
take advantage
targets.
of one of the largest pools of
That's
characters
actually probably
in
one of the
game.
parts that Acheron does
Acheron
poorly
will
on,
continue to
and
swear by her until
probably
the
the
day
best
she
way to
dies.
see that.
And while she may not be
Probably the best way to see that she's aged poorly is that her single target damage is actually pretty fucking dog shit.
great for the more casual player, her strength this far into the game is simply undeniable. Today, we need to move on to the finals. I've left this type for last not because it was the newest form of Nihility, but because this is the true future of Nihility. Defense Shredders have existed in Star Rail for as long as the game has been out. Pela, one of the oldest characters in the game, guess what? She is a Defense Shredder. Her whole job is to ult the enemy to weaken them, and then gain her ult back ASAP. Defense Shredders have actually been the most consistent form of character in the Nihility path, with 6 different characters having the ability.
So he said specifically defense shred. And most of these characters are actually vulnerabilities. I think half of these are actually vulnerability debuffs. Well, Joe and Gwynaifen, they're strictly vulnerabilities. Let's see, Fugue, I think, is just defense shred. I have Fugue. Hold on. I'm so used to like using Fugue like a certain way that I actually kind of forget like what her kit does on its own. Because like I run her with Pearls of Sweat, so like I know she lowers defense because of Pearls of Sweat. But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so her skill does actually enable the defense debuff to be applied. Okay. So, yeah, she does lower defense. So she's a defense shredder, okay, fine. Black Swan's 20%, 18% from View. Like, these are relatively small amounts that usually don't make up for just running a Harmony buffer, obviously. Pella like didn't even compete very well. He just talked about Pella, but he didn't even show Pella in this list. So like, this is super weird.
Consistent form of character in the Nihility path, with 6 different characters.
6 different characters, but he doesn't. So he just talked about Pella. Says 6 different characters. Shows 6 characters here, but Pella's not one of them. It's like this is why I think like this video seems a little fucking weird to me. Is just there's these constant little errors throughout the video.
Having the ability to lower enemy defense or increase damage taken. Let's now take a look at some of them to learn more about this type of character. She not only afflicts DOT, but can also increase damage nowadays by talent damage. At E6, it can definitely take a minute to inflict a defense, and she performed Black. This was now 2 characters in defense percentages until Finron was a support dedicated entirely to helping her. No one. So what does Zhao Cho do exactly? Well, his usefulness is tied entirely to his signature debuff, Ashen Roast. You'll see his talent on screen now, but when Zhao Cho hits an enemy with basic attack, skill, or ultimate, there is a 100% chance to inflict 1 stack of Ashen Roast on them. 1 stack increases damage received by 15%. Then, each subsequent stack increases this by 5%, and this can stack up to 5 times. Oh, and also, when an enemy target is afflicted with Ashen Roast, they are also considered as being burned at the same time, taking fire DOT equal to 180% of Zhao Cho's attack at the start of each turn. Zhao Cho's damage dealing capabilities are truthfully pretty worthless when his talent is already so good. The max damage increase without any other boost that you can get from Zhao Cho is about.
So I'll compliment him on that, recognizing that Zhao Cho's dot damage is not meaningful. Like, the 180% multiplier is just too low to be a meaningful multiplier. Like, if you consider Zhao Cho a dot character, then Serval's a dot character. Like, that's how fucking dumb it is. Yeah.
About 35 taken by 15% fills the Nihility. He also set a standard for the Nihility path going forward, which is still yet to be broken. The final 2 character that greatly helps further what Acheron is capable of. He also set a standard for the Nihility path going forward, which is still yet to be broken. The final 2 characters
Set a standard for the Nihility path that is still yet to be broken, but doesn't say what that is.
ultimate
And
damage
I skipped
taken
a
by
little bit of the video.
15% flat out. Huh, I wonder who that's for. He fulfills the Nihility requirement to increase her damage, while also giving a massive damage boost just by existing. He's overall a fantastic character that greatly helps further what Acheron is capable of. He also set a standard for the Nihility path going forward, which is still yet to be broken.
Again, like, it's just really odd. Like, he says, like, a standard that hasn't been... Yeah, that's just fucking weird. He talks about Fugue, and like, yeah, like, I think I'm just gonna stop here. Like, I don't need to review, like, the entire video, but I think I've kind of made the point. Like, just, this video just seems really weird. Like, I'm not gonna accuse something weird, like maybe writes his shit with AI or something like that. I mean, these are definitely mistakes that a player can absolutely make as far as misunderstanding how kits work or how certain effects actually interact with each other, or just missing fucking characters when discussing defense down and vulnerability debuffs. But yeah, no, it's just a very fucking weird video. And it like, as I was listening to it, I'm like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's wrong. So yeah, I just had to kind of dissect this a little and kind of throw some of my my own thoughts into the ring, as it were. Very strange video. Don't plan on doing this regularly. It's just because this video was just so weird, I felt compelled